Conceive, believe, achieve. Shut the f*** up.
This is Believe You Me on the Gas Digital Network.
I'm of the thought process that I think Nate is probably the better fighter now. I feel like he's more well-rounded. I feel like he has, than Nick.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. You know, I mean, Nate Diaz is very, very good, and he's had some amazing fights in his career against people in the lightweight division. He did go up to 170, didn't go well. I mean, I remember Roy McDonald smashing him. Nick Diaz was around forever, man. Nick Diaz had some amazing legendary fights. Look at what he did to Paul Daly. Outboxed Paul Daly, stood toe-to-toe, had him backed up against the fence, knocked him out, dropped him. The submission over, what was his face in Pride? Oh, Gomi.
Yeah.
He did the go-go platter. Some amazing, knocked out Robbie Lawler. He's had some amazing knockouts, some fantastic performances. Nick is as old school as they get, in every sense of the term, as a personality, as a fighter, in many, many ways. He's got old school values. And listen, he hasn't fought in a long time. He went 5 rounds with Anderson Silva. That's not an easy thing to do. I think Nick is the better fighter. He's the bigger version. I think he has better boxing. I don't know. Listen, both Diaz's are very, very good fighters. I enjoy them both. I like watching them both.
I'm just talking about when you look at what they do and you look at their body of work, all of Nick's success was pre his second UFC run. It was in Strikeforce. He went over to Pride. He had some fucking great fights. But the reality is, look at it's not as impressive of a win list. Yes, he did have the fights against GSP and he went the distance with Anderson Silva. These are fights that he lost to Carlos Condit. Those big fights, he ended up losing. Now, Nate, he lost some big fights too. But Nate, if you look at just on Sherdog, the red and the green, Nate has been fighting the absolute best of the absolute best. The level of competition that Nate's been fighting, in my opinion, has been a lot higher. He had middling success at 170 pounds, but honestly, so did Nick in the UFC.
Well, he didn't have middling success. He had terrible success. He didn't win a single fight. He did win one fight against Conor McGregor, okay, but that wasn't a fight at 170.
Yeah, it was, technically.
Do you think that was Nick? Do you honestly believe that was two welterweights fighting?
255-pounders fighting that did not cut weight. It was good for them.
Exactly. So Nate Diaz, his last fight was a loss to Conor McGregor. Prior to that, a win over Conor McGregor. Both very, very good fights. Everybody enjoyed those. A good win over Michael Johnson. Prior to that, he lost to Rafael dos Anjos. No shame there. After that, it was a win over Gray Maynard. I remember that fight. He looked exceptional against Gray Maynard. But, Gray Maynard, towards the end of his career there. Then he lost to Josh Thompson, knockout. Then he lost to Benson Henderson. He gave Benson Henderson a good run for his money, though. And then before that, went on a 3-fight win streak. Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone, Takanori Gomi. Yeah, I never knew that.
I thought he did win a couple fights at 170, didn't he, Harrington?
No, he lost 2. He lost to Don Young Kim and he lost to Roy McDonald. All right, he did win that one against Conor McGregor, but that was 2 lightweights that just didn't want to cut weight, So, listen, there's some good names on there, but I don't think it's fair to say that
Rory
he's fought better
Markham
competition than Nick. And to be honest, this is a stupid conversation. It's a conversation that either of them aren't going to have. They're not going to sit there and argue and say, "Yeah, man, I fought better competition than you, man." They're not. Is that a bad impression?
That was a terrible impression. And I think this is a healthy, spirited debate about who the better Diaz brother is. I think that's a fucking great conversation.
It actually is. It actually, when you break it down like that, you're talking about who's fought the best competition. I think Nick Diaz fought the best competition. We just went through Nate Diaz's list, okay? Now we're going to do Nick Diaz, if I can see anything, because my bloody contact lenses have dried out big time.
I got it right here. All right, so UFC second run, got the win over BJ Penn, which in my opinion to this day may be my favorite fight of all time.
Well, hold on. No. Let's start with his last fight. Was a
no contest.
He initially lost to Anderson Silva, which was a great fight. Remember that first fight? Nick Diaz lying on the floor and propping his head up as if he's in bed. That was the greatest thing I've ever seen. He's fighting Anderson Silva, the great Anderson Silva, and he lies down and fucks around. And I just thought that was awesome because that's what Anderson Silva does to people. And Nick Diaz said, "Fuck you," and did it right back. And I immediately, I was a fan. I was already a fan, but you know what I mean. Prior to that, lost to George St. Pierre and then lost to Carlos Condit. Former welterweight champion, best fighter of all time. Prior to that, interim champion. Okay, so far we're on 3 of the greatest fighters of all time.
And he lost decisively.
Silva, but by decision, right? Greatest fighter of all time, maybe. Prior to that, George St. Pierre, greatest fighter of all time, maybe. Yeah, lost to both of them, but still took them both to a decision. Prior to that, Carlos Condit, mean, bad motherfucker. He's not walking the park for anybody.
Greatest fighter of all time?
Not greatest fighter of all time. But, you know, kiss my ass. Prior to that, BJ Penn. What are you going to say about that fight?
Let's get real, dude. This was BJ Penn at the beginning of the end.
Yes,
the beginning of the end.
It was, but even still, the conversation was who's fought the best competition. So far, and we're only into Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, Carlos Condit, and BJ Penn.
He lost to all of them.
Greatest fighters that ever stepped into the octagon. But let's continue, because that's what we're going to do. After that, Paul Daly, an amazing fighter. Great fighter.
First of all, the drop-off that we just fucking had from the greatest fighters of all time, and then now we're down to Paul Daly, and God bless him. He is a great fighter, but...
Pardon me. Listen, Lewis, if anyone's going to condescendingly say, God bless them, that's me. That's my line, okay? And you can't continually fight the greatest fighters of all time in your career. There's only a couple of people that can be in the running for greatest fighter of all time. You can't have a record full of, every single one of them is the greatest fighter of all time. That's not how being the greatest fighter of all time works. Now, can I please stop saying greatest fighter of all time? Jesus Christ. GOAT.
Listen, you can't, now you're about to go into his, 100 fucking wins in a row against...
Hold on. By the way, I know what you're going to say. Now there's a drop-off in competition. But there is a catch. He was in Strikeforce.
Well, okay.
Yeah. He was fighting Strikeforce.
You said it like you were making some fucking real point there, and it was nothing.
Yeah, no, he's fighting Strikeforce people, so they're not the greatest of all time.
Yeah, he went on a run of
what those Strikeforce motherfuckers like to think. Paul Daly, Evangelista Santos, KJ Nunes, Hayato Sakurai, Marius Zaromskis. Hey, Marius Zaromskis was a bad mother effer back in the day. Scott Smith, Frank Shamrock, Thomas Denny. All right, I'm losing this argument now.
Yeah.
Now we're back in the UFC. Gleason Tebow, tough guy. Yeah. Josh Neer, Ray Steinbeiss, Sean Shirk, Joe Riggs. Here we go. Diego Sanchez. I don't know. All right. Well, they've all fought some good guys.
Well, here's the deal, right? He went on this run in Strikeforce. Then he's back. It's fucking Nick Diaz back in the UFC. Holy shit. Gets his fight against BJ. It's like, holy shit. One of the best fighters of all time. But at the time, we didn't know that BJ was about to really fall off. It was, whatever, I don't know what it exactly was, but it seemed to be like a shift in competition, or it was maybe just another evolution. The level of athleticism got there. BJ just started losing. He never won another fight since that fight. Okay. And then Nick Diaz went and lost 3 fights decisively. It wasn't even close. Some people argued the George St. Pierre fight was close. I fucking love Nick. It wasn't close. Okay. Nick lost those fights.
It wasn't close. He lost that fight, but still, he lost to Carlos Condit, he lost to George St. Pierre, and he lost to Anderson Silva. Listen, there's no shame in losing to those 3 guys. I don't know what you're trying to do. 1 minute you're telling me, Lewis, that you're the biggest fan of Nick and Nate Diaz, and the next minute you're trying to diminish their records.
I'm just saying that Nate Diaz right now recently has a win over Conor McGregor, win over Michael Johnson, win over Gray Maynard. He's got a couple losses to Josh Thompson and Rafael dos Anjos. These guys are champions. These guys are Rafael has got the championship fight coming up. Conor McGregor, current champion or just had it stripped. You're talking about he's only lost to the best of the best. Even Benson Henderson at the time, was that a title fight? Yeah, it was a title fight. I mean, dude, you're talking about the best of the best. Also, Nate loses to. In a division, his division at 155 is a tougher division for all intents and purposes. And then he went and he fought.
Whoa. Hold on, listen. Nate Diaz lost to Rory McDonald, lost to Don Young Kim, beat Marcus Davis, beat Rory Markham, lost to Gray Maynard, beat Melvin Gillard, lost to Joe Stevenson,
Joe Daddy,
lost to Clay Guida.
Yeah, okay.
Dropping a mic, although it's not. New iPhone X.
If you drop that microphone, we're gonna fuck up the audio again. I will kill you. Do not drop that mic. Send us a tweet. Put it on the Twitter, Harrington. Who's the better Diaz brother, Nick or Nate? And we'll see who the fans agree with. I think it's Nate. Michael Bisping says it's Nick.